Welcome to They Are Waiting for Us from Forbes Books, the podcast that explores how education can transform lives and communities, featuring conversations with change agents who are making a difference in education, from parents and advocates to teachers and leaders. Here's Dr. Lisa Andrew.
I'm back with my dear friend Chandra Alexandre. We've been discussing her eclectic career journey through the nonprofit, academic, and public sectors to leading Community Action Marin, along with the biggest challenges facing the American education system. Now, Chandra, you touched on it a little bit in part one, but can you tell us more about the mission of Community Action Marin?
Thanks, Lisa. I've touched on it in the early education arena. So Community Action Marin is a nonprofit social services agency. In fact, we're the largest nonprofit social services agency fighting the causes and consequences of poverty in Marin County. Many people know, and if you don't, Marin is one of the most affluent counties in California, if not the nation, and it's predominantly white. It's about 83% white, and yet we have incredible disparities. And if you look at the Race Counts report, depending on the year, we're 1, 2, or 3 in terms of the greatest inequities by race in the entire state. And the opportunity for us, so let's look at the opportunity, is to say we have the affluence, we have a relatively small population, about 275,000 people in Marin. We've got politically progressive mindsets that can be pushed and leveraged towards equitable outcomes, educational outcomes, racial outcomes. We can reduce the opportunity gaps that exist for kindergarten readiness, for example, between white and students of color. In kindergarten readiness alone, there's a 26% opportunity gap. So most of our white kids are getting ready for early school and school experiences, and there are a lot of kids who are left behind. So we do have an opportunity. We can say that universal pre-K, and we can work differently with our financing mechanisms, and we can come together as an ecosystem and push and roadmap for success and educational equity. So our agency is deeply committed in that space, but we're also, as a community action agency, committed to doing the work of anti-racist poverty alleviation and really creating opportunities for systems level change. And we believe that there are opportunities, possibilities for building an anti-poverty movement in Marin that can provide a proof point for what's possible nationally around racial and economic justice.
Yeah.
And I would say one more thing, that the way we think about it is through whole person, intergenerational commitment from those early years all the way into school and beyond, into the workforce, whatever that looks like for an individual or a family. And so we're a comprehensive services provider, but we do the work of changing laws and policies. We help to shift mindsets about poverty in America and poverty in our county. In Marin, given our affluence, people think it doesn't exist. People who live here don't believe poverty is in their backyard. And yet it is. And we are failing so many of our little ones. Mm-hmm. We are failing so many people with sort of curtailing their access to incredible opportunities that are available here. And my agency, our team of over 200, is dedicated each and every day to a whole family approach, again, across generations, that helps people get to success in their terms, in their vision for what they want for happiness and fulfillment. And really, we hope is setting us all up for success around anti-poverty movement building and greater racial and economic justice.
Mm-hmm. So needed, especially in a place where folks just don't think it exists. And it's easy to overlook, easy to look past, easy to say, yeah, kind of, that's only a few people. So with all that, do you think organizations like Community Action Marin will always be needed?
It's a great question. And I think our aspiration is quintessentially, let's work ourselves out of a job. But the realities are that, the community action movement nationally was born out of the Civil Rights Act and the Economic Opportunity Act, both of 1964, and LBJ's war on poverty and all of that, and community action still exists. I think the idea of local solutions, utilizing and leveraging those dollars locally because we know best how to use them, is brilliant and still really critically important. But we're not there yet. We don't have all the pieces in place to say we know how to fix poverty in our county, in our state, or in our country. Do I believe we're going to be needed? Absolutely. The wealth gap is bigger than it's ever been. The political divides that separate us from progress, and racial equity, racial justice, educational equity are larger and more pronounced than they've ever been. We have a lot of work to do as a society and as individuals if we're to commit to changing the landscape of what it looks like, feels like to be an American. And I think we do have moments of opportunity, but we have to seize them, and we have to be courageous, and we have to be willing to fight the fight in so many ways, be bold and unapologetic who we are and what we stand for. And I think there are levers for change available to us. That's the good news. And take those small wins, create those opportunities, open some doors, do what you can do. Build power with people in your community to sit at the table and have those courageous conversations. And let your elected officials know what you care about, what moves you, what needs to change in your own backyard for equity to be real.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe I'm like you. I would love for my organization to be worked out of a job. And then I also I think there'll always be a place for a convener, for a facilitator, for a synthesizer, for helping to get all the arrows in the same direction, because folks are really heads down. If they're really heads down focusing on their platform and power and privilege, there does need to be a connector. I mean, someone that is their power, platform, and privilege is being the connector and the convener. But I'm with you. I would love to be able to work our way out of a job of having to champion over and over and over the voice of those who are being ignored. I feel it's being ignored. It's not that they're not speaking up, but there's a chosen selective hearing that's happening in our nation. So
I wanted to add, I think we need as people to have a somatic experience. We need to have a connection in our bodies of being with people who disagree with us, of being around tables to listen, and to have those facilitated spaces where, yes, there's a convener, but we're also facilitating conversation and connection in the same room with people who may think very differently than we do. And if as people, we can learn each other's stories and be willing to hear where we come from, what we care about, what we're struggling with every day, that human connection can fortify something greater. So fully agree with you. We need to be conveners, facilitators, and champions for having those people together, having us together.
Absolutely. So let's hone in a little bit on the educational justice aspect of your work. What do you think needs to be done to close the persistent achievement gap between student demographics?
Well, I think that
little question. Just a little.
Yeah. I mean, the system is producing the outcomes it was designed to produce, and we know that. So every level of change is needed. We need to stop pointing the finger at Black and brown children and saying they're the problem or the parents are the problem. We need to understand that we're the problem. And what we've created is failing our children. So we need to do something different. Policy change, legislative change, money flows change, proposition change, helping educators to think differently and see differently, to be in classrooms that are nurturing and supportive, that give every child not only access, but truly that opportunity to get to who they are and who they want to be. How many times have you heard as an educator that one teacher that changed somebody's life? You've been that one teacher who's changed somebody's life, Lisa. I know you have. Why should that be it? Shouldn't the system be replete with all of us who are committed to changing every student's life because we know it's what's in society's best interest? So it has to happen on every level, from changing how we think about a broken system and how we think about the people in that broken system to there's something wrong with them, to know it's our job, our responsibility to do something different, to speak to folks in positions of power, to have those courageous conversations around tables where disagreement happens, to fight back, to push upstream. I think it really does take a variety of different levers for change to say we care, it matters. Data can drive different kinds of decision making, disaggregating data, showing those opportunity gaps across cradle to career and education is critically important, but then saying we have action commitments to how we're seeking to solve for it. And we need you, elected official. We need you, superintendent. We need you, teacher, parent, student leader. We need to come together to say, yes, we're committed to doing it in our district, in our county, our community, our state, our country.
Yeah.
It's a huge battle, but it is a battle, and we need to name it for what it is.
Yeah.
We need to call on all of those different approaches and say that actually we need them all. We need financial support. We need the system to work differently. We need electeds to pass different kinds of laws that support educational equity and well-being for all students, for all people. And it needs to be a different kind of conversation. The narrative needs to change around poverty, around who is living in poverty, right? Locally with us, lifting up those voices and having people tell their story in proximity to one another. Those are all important pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a tension that I often feel where I advocate for more resources. And then I also feel like, yes, but the school, the K-12 system is the only system I've ever worked in where even when you get worse results than the year before, you still get money. So it's just that what is it that's if it is the money, the resources, is it they truly leaders and truly people in the system have to have the will to want to do something different and better. So parents and community are very, very, I mean, they're the ones that elect, right? The officials that are making policy and law. What are some things that you have found to be most influential or most convincing that have come from families and communities toward demanding and supporting educational improvement?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. One is we need to supply parents with data that's disaggregated, that illustrates the gaps, the inequities, the unfairness, and we need to present it saying, this isn't right. It matters to me what's happening for children of color in our system, for children who enter the system under-resourced, and we're going to help you help yourself. And it's giving that power, right? Sharing that power in community, partnering with people to leverage positional power, whatever kind of strength we have. And I do think it then is about listening to what do they have to say and what their struggles are. Start locally. Start with your county office of education. There's an election coming up. There's a meeting of the board of supervisors. How do you get individuals who are already working 2 or 3 jobs, who don't necessarily have the time to take out of their schedules to show up and participate, who may need, translation into their preferred language to really understand what's going on? How do you get that? It's really got to start with those small steps to increase their agency and their sense that their voice matters. But it's got to start with trusted relationships,
right?
And how do we build that in our school systems? How do we build that in our community-based organization systems? And sometimes it's leveraging what we know we have. If there are programs or community services or PTA, if there are spaces where we can come in with data and ask and listen for those stories and say, here's an opportunity for us and we're going to go together. We've got your back. Support talking points, support individual leaders. It's really got to start small, but that's how we build the power with community.
For sure. I really like the idea you have of informing them in ways that they understand, because then once they have the data, they can act on the data and will act on the data. It's just like they don't know what they don't know, but they definitely can understand it. They definitely can utilize it. They definitely can leverage it for the hopes and dreams that they have for their own child or themselves if they're back in school.
Even to say it's not right. Mm-hmm. How is this possible?
Yeah.
Right? That sense of outrage at what's happening. And it's not their child. It's collectively our children. My goodness.
True.
And the data is there. So again, how do we in community, and my agency seeks to do this through a lot of, we have family advocates, we have parent advocates. We seek to bring our parent leadership council to the table and support them with information and really rally our staff around and alongside them. It's ongoing hard work, but that's the work we're committed to doing because it is in those trusted relationships where people then feel supported and empowered enough to raise their voice.
That's awesome. Thank you. It's awesome. Love all of those ideas, and I'll sign up. Yes, yes, and yes. So now I'm going to bring back a little bit of where we started with your personal background into this educational realm and the reform that's needed. And so I know that you taught fundraising and philanthropy at USF. So what should aspiring education reformers know about securing funding so that they can be part of this reform effort?
It's a hard question because there is philanthropy. There are contributions that matter. People's heart and passion pushing for educational equity through philanthropy is critically important. And I think we all who are deeply committed to changing the system need to understand how the money flows and how the money works. And that's state budgets. That's how we're contracting for state subsidized childcare. That's how K-12 is funded. You need to understand where the money comes from, how the money is being allocated. There needs to be budget transparency for children. Where in our community can we look at a budget and see a line, childhood education, K-12? You can't, because it's all interspersed throughout a variety of different buckets, but we need to hold people accountable and demand that kind of budget transparency. So know the money flows, demand budget transparency, and then ask yourself, what can you do to inspire and motivate people to give from their passion, from their connection, to say that educational equity matters and they can be a lever for change through their own donations, their own advocacy, their own voices at the table. Those are all really critically important pieces.
Love it. Thank you. Yes. Agree. So where would you like to see the education reform movement focused in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think it needs to be the cradle to career effort. I think we need to be really vocal about early childhood education within California, within the overall system. We need to highlight transitional kindergarten challenges. Social emotional learning and ECE expertise needs to be in those classrooms powerfully with our TK educators. We need to leverage Head Start federal funding in those classrooms for 4-year-olds to bring that knowledge, insight, expertise so that you've got an early childhood educator and a K-12 teacher in the same classroom doing the best for our children. We need to be thinking differently about educational equity. Again, going back to how are we resourcing in order to ensure equitable outcomes. I think it needs to be a clear line of sight from 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds all the way up. And we can't just stop at kindergarten or now TK. We've got to say those early years matter, and what are we doing to support children in their educational journeys, our society, people who want to enter the workforce or go back to school with high quality early education, giving them that opportunity and really providing parents with choices, but helping parents understand the choices they have available and putting money where it needs to be in support of those choices.
The idea that if we invest in early childhood education, it will eliminate need for intervention. It will eliminate, academic intervention, emotional intervention, mental illness, eliminate the pipeline into the justice system. This is a proven, over and over researched aspect of our society that I, like you, am waiting for our society to have the will to put this into place, because this isn't something we don't know. We know, and we know it starts early. And when we start early, the kids show up for us. They're waiting for us to do the right thing because they're showing up, and they will show up. We invest in them early, and we just know many of these other things just drop off, just fade away. So I'm with you. I'll be signing up for whatever you're leading in the next 5 to 10 years, as you know. So you have so much that you've given to your community, given to many communities, given the breadth of your experience. So, and you're young. I know you have many years ahead of you to still reform and to influence. But if you could just like look into the future a bit, Chandra, what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, thanks, Lisa, for the young part. I'm definitely committed to another 25 years. So we'll start with that. I hope that I leave a legacy that says something's possible, that even if it's a small modicum of change, that I help to create or inspire, because I was willing to be bold and unapologetic. I was willing to speak my mind and my truth. I was willing to show up fully. I was willing to air out differences and do the hard work. If I have been able to inspire somebody else and leave a legacy that says we can do better, I would be very happy. I don't have regrets in how I live my life, but I do know that there's a lot more to do and a lot more I want to contribute. And I hope that as others inspire me, I can continue to inspire people around me so that we can be better together. No one of us can do all of the things that need doing alone, and we need to continue to support and hold up each other. And, my hope is that I can demonstrate to people what stronger together looks like, that being with another in the struggle is something that can inspire more people to say, yes, me too, I'm in, I want to help. It matters what I do. I get asked all the time by people in affluent Marin, what can I do, right? How can it matter what I contribute? And I say, just start.
Yes.
Just do the one thing that you can do. So I think that's what I would hope, is that at the very least, I could inspire others to continue doing that one thing.
Well, I think you're well on your way, because I'm better for knowing you, and I'm definitely inspired by you and your work. I know people are going to be inspired when they listen to this. So I just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast today. But before I let you go, if our listeners wanted to find out more about you or more about Community Action Marin, what should they do?
They can reach out to me over Community Action Marin's website, camarin.org, and you can feel free to send us an email. We'll be back in touch as soon as possible. Thank you so much, Lisa, for all the work that you do. You're an incredible leader and an incredible inspiration to me. It's been a joy and a pleasure talking to you today.
You're quite welcome. And that wraps up this episode of They Are Waiting for Us. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a moment to subscribe so you can get notifications when new episodes drop. Also, if you could spare a minute, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a review to help others like yourself discover the show. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
This has been They Are Waiting for Us. If you want to learn how to create economic opportunity through equal access to quality education and create an extraordinary learning environment focused on everyone realizing their full potential, go to drlisaandrew.com. They Are Waiting for Us is a production of Forbes Books.